Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is doing fine, and welcome back to the another series of Demystifying Post-Productions webinar. And yeah, we've started the series by discussing about the look creations in the form of LUT from the pre-productions, and we somehow showcased the use of it in the live setup environment with our friend at Canon USA last week. And yeah, although there are some technical hiccups, we do apologize for those technical hiccups in the last week's sessions. Well, sorry for that. And for you who missed the last sessions and want to rewatch it, you can simply go to our YouTube channel under the name Maxon Training Team. All the webinar hosted by the Maxon Training Team will be uploaded into this channel. And yes, today we are going to discuss about color management. It's a bit a more technical topic, but I think it's really useful, and I think everyone can benefit from it. And there are also some footage uploaded to the download link. So if you want to follow along, you can download the footage and you can follow along with today's sessions. And we will do some color managed project setup in DaVinci Resolve in ACES framework. And yeah, that's for today. And next week, we will do an interesting investigations about film emulations process. And we will be joined by a special guest, the one and only Stu Maschwitz. He's the director, post-production supervisor, and also the chief creative officer at Maxon. And Stu will share with us some of his story behind Magic Bullet Film Tool and also some practical tips and trick of doing film emulations treatment for our grading project. And joining us today is Diego Llama. Diego is the founder, the director, and the colorist at Estudio Rocco, based in Colombia. He's a master training. He's a master trainer. Sorry for the hiccups, Diego. He's a master trainer for Blackmagic Design. And for those of you who wants to dive deeper into ACES, Diego has made a really great playlist. He provided an educational resources for Netflix, and that was about ACES setup in DaVinci Resolve. So if you're curious about that, you can head into to YouTube and search for ACES setup in DaVinci Resolve under new digital backlot brand account. Yeah, I'll provide the link in the chat. So actually, speaking of ACES, this playlist by Diego will be a very great complement to our sessions today. And yeah, my name is Max, and I am the resident colorist and trainer here at Maxon. So before we jump right into the discussions, let me point you out to some little fun facts. So if you would like to test your knowledge about Maxon and Red Giant products, you can do so because we have certifications page under maxon.net/certifications. So there are three different certifications: the free elementary knowledge test. And for example, if you're using Magic Bullet Suite, you can take this test, and upon passing the test, you will have the certificate of acknowledgements. The test consists of like 50 questions. And to pass, as mentioned here, you need a score of around 85%. And you can do this as a memory jogger to refresh your knowledge about the products that you're using. So if you open the provided link in the download resources, you know that you can get free t-shirts as well for today by using the free t-shirt link and using the password color to set 07. And you will get a free t-shirt, but you just need to pay for the shipping cost, which round about $4 each. And the code will only valid for one order. And yeah, for upcoming events, you can check them out in our events page, maxon.net/events. So without further ado, let us jump to today's topic, color management. So I will.
In some way, can I say something before?
Yes.
I mean, we don't want to make like a really like theoretical like hour of color management, because that will be a little bit boring.
Yes.
We want to make it like really practical, and that's the reason of this session. Max and me are going to show you in Resolve how the things are going to work, and please ask as many things as you want it.
Yes, exactly. So it's a interactive discussions. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. If you have a question for me or Diego, and I will just read it out to one of us. I mean, yeah. And yeah, today we'll talk a little bit about color management. Since it's a 1 hour webinar, I don't think we will be able to cover all the detail, but we will try to point you out to a good resource where you can do your own investigations, if you like. So color management. Color management is a big word that you hear when you are doing a grading project. But in its simplest term, color management can be understood as a controlled transformations between color spaces. We know that when we are capturing our project, when our capturing our footage, the camera has its own color spaces. And the display that we're working on has its own color spaces, and also the display where we will project our piece also have their own color spaces. And in color management, there are two terms that you normally encounter. That is the display referred workflow and the scene referred workflow. Well, in its simple term, you can get away by understanding that simple display referred workflow is where we manipulate the images, our images, after they have been transformed from camera color space into the display color space. So as you can see in the graphic, we have the footage acquired, and then we do the transformations, and then we grade on top of that, and then we port it out to the display. Whereas the scene referred workflow, it's quite the other way around. Scene referred workflow is where we grade, where we manipulate our images prior to their transformations from camera color space to display color space. So theoretically speaking, we are working in camera color space. And yeah, scene referred workflow allow us to make adjustments which are proportional to real world scene, because it was based on the real amount of color and light in the actual scene the day the footage was captured. So to give you a nice backstory about it, perhaps it's better to understand the origin of the modern color grading techniques and tool. And we all know that the modern color grading tools and techniques is the combinations of both from two distinctive disciplines of image mastering. That is the color timing and color corrections. So color timing is the photochemical process which manipulates film images through the use of physical lights. And it is the colorizations of film as it is being developed. So by nature, the process of color timing is a scene referred, since the image manipulations happen before the transformations to a display color space. Meanwhile, the color corrections is a electronic process which manipulates images by altering the signal. So color corrections was designed to tweak the broadcast images, which were already in the display color space. So the benefit, why would I prefer working on one workflow over the others? There are some benefit that you can get when you are working with scene referred workflow. So the main benefit of scene referred workflow is that they are operating the image in the state where the image is captured in. So you can maintain the creative intent of the grade by applying the look to the image on the state. And doing so, it will be easier for us to get a consistent look. And apart from that, the main benefit of it is that you will get all the dynamic range of the image, and also all the color informations of the captured image. So in Resolve, when we're using Resolve, there are several how do you call it, color management that you can use for your project, either using by the DaVinci color management or using the framework established by the Academy, which is called ACES. And if you want to use ACES in Resolve, you can set it in either in project settings, which Diego will explain you later on, or you can also set it up visually in the node tree, which I will describe right after this. So in order to set up our ACES project in the node tree in Resolve, what we will need to do is the OFX ACES transform, which lives under Resolve FX Color. And this OFX allow us to simulate either the IDT and the ODT inside Resolve. So let me see here. Okay. So there are also some considerations that you need to know before you are setting all your project in ACES in Resolve. So for example, if you want to set up the project, the ACES in Node workflow, you can, wait a second, let me move the interface of GoToWebinar.
Don't worry.
So,
I even don't see the screen. I don't know why.
oh, you
But I
don't
think
see the
people
screen?
are looking at it. Yes, probably it's me. I know. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm sorry, guys. I think that's a hiccup on my side. So yeah, let me recap it again. There are the scene workflow. The scene
All right.
referred workflow is where we do our grade in the camera color space, because the grade happen after the footage is acquired, and then you do the transformations to the display color color space. And then the benefit of that, by working in the scene referred workflow, is that you will have the access to image dynamic range and also the color informations. And as I mentioned previously, you can set it up in Resolve, either in the project settings or also in the node settings. When you want to set it up in the node settings, you will need an OFX, which is called the ACES transform. You can search the OFX by just simply going to the OFX panel. And if you scroll down under Resolve FX Color, you will see ACES transform. But before we go on and discuss how do we set it up in Node 3, I think it is better if we move to Diego, and Diego will explain what is IDT, what is ODT, all the things that you need to know before we are setting up the project in ACES. And sorry that I forgot to share my screen.
I was thinking that it was just me, but I saw in the chat. Don't worry. So yeah, I mean,
let me make you a presenter, Diego.
awesome, perfect. And let me actually share my screen.
Yeah, don't repeat my mistake.
Don't worry. So okay, so let me share the screen too. Okay, so you should probably see it now, right?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So as Max said, I mean, we are recently, like for about 4 or 5 years, we have been talking about color management, and all of that new names appear. And in some way, we can say that for around 2 years and 3 years, and now the color or the color grading is changing. It's changing in a lot. It's changing a lot because like 10 years ago, we used to grade like in DaVinci YRGB, and that was all. And then we finish into a display, can be Rec 709 or for cinema P3, and that was actually all. That was actually all. With the color management, probably more technical things start to appear in the color grading part, especially in the artistic part. So we had to research more about it. And one of the main reasons about color management, and I will say the goal of color management, is to keep color consistency between set and post-production without maintaining the most aesthetic transformation and without suffering many of the things. One of the main reasons that the color management appears was that because everyone was looking at different things. The editor was looking something, the colorist was looking another one, the on set they were looking one thing. So it was a completely like mess between color from the beginning to the end. So that's the reason that actually color management appeared. So as Matt said, we when we are thinking on color management or in a color model, thinking on the scene, we have to work with the information of the scene. So when we're talking about scene, we are talking about how the cameras capture the real light. And that's the most important thing. When we are talking about display, we are talking about how a display can display the light coming from a camera or something like that. So as Max said, the main advantage of working in a scene referred color space is that first we work with all the information, the reflected information, and second, we from that information, because it's so big, we can go to different displays, and that's the most important thing. I don't know if in your countries happen, but here in Colombia with the pandemic, what happened was that they didn't record anymore like in 2020. So they were like putting again the programs or the soap opera that they made in the 2010 or even the 2015, but they have to regrade it again. They have to regrade it again. So it was a problem. It was a problem because all of that programs were graded based on a display. If that programs will be graded based on a scene, what we need or what we can do is maybe just switch the display where we want it, and we will do some trim, and that's all. So definitely working in a scene is future proof, is great for archival, and we also take advantage of all the colors of the scene. That is something really, really important. And just to give a conclusion about it. So what we need like to start like working in scene referred. First, we need to work with all the information from the scene. So that's where appears this concept of working color space, or in Resolve, you can call it timeline color space. So what this means, that all the footage that we record or that we have is converted to a working color space that is wide dynamic range, wide gamut and wide dynamic range that can hold all colors that was captured from the camera. So this is a really, really important thing. The working color space should be at least the same as the camera or even bigger. Without a working color space, you cannot work scene referred. And that is something really, really important. So how the process is going to be, and we will simulate it later with nodes and later like in a project based. So first, what you do is, I'm here, all right. You record some things with camera, or you have some animations and so on. But when you're working in some cases, for example, in Resolve Color Manage or in ACES, what you do is you convert that sources to a working color space. When you convert them to a working color space, they are not anymore Arri, they are not anymore Sony, or I don't know, a file, a 3D. There was a play.
There was
So
a play. I can hear that, but it's fine now.
okay, so when so that means that when you record that, you convert them to that working color space, and you eliminate all the specific attributes of the cameras, of the animations, and all of them are right now under a same name. It can be ACES, then we will work more about it, and so on. But then when you are in a working color space that hold all the information, then you make another part of that pipeline, and you convert from that working color space that is so big to a display color space. And that's actually the basic pipeline. It has a lot of more things, but I mean, this is the basic pipeline. So what do you need? You need an input color space or input device transforming ACES. You need a working color space that is wide dynamic range and wide gamut, high dynamic range and wide gamut. And finally, you need to see it, because you cannot see something that is, I mean, you need a display to see that. So that's the reason that you have a output color space or a output device transform. So those are the 3 steps that we are going to simulate in a bit. So before simulating exactly how ACES works, so it will be interesting to know what is ACES. So ACES is a color management framework designed by the Academy, and one of the main goals is to provide consistency, color consistency, through all the stages of production and post-production by providing a standard color transform for major cameras and display types. So what this means is that if all of the sources go to ACES, now they have the same attributes, and if all of us work in ACES, all of us speak the same language. So this is one of the main goals of ACES. It's like, it's not a color space, it's a framework from production to post-production. And this is really important. So how ACES works? So when you work in ACES, you convert your footage to a wide gamut color space and high dynamic range that can hold all the information of the camera. And one of the great things about ACES is that ACES is open source. So what this means is that anyone can use ACES. They can use it, I mean, in a light grade in the program on set. They can use it in Color Front. They can use it in Baseline. They can use it on Nuke. They can use it in After Effects. And if a software does not have ACES, they can implement it. And this is really important because this is what makes ACES interoperable. If something is in ACES, everyone speaks the same language. And that is one of the main, most important part. Talking about that, if you want to know more about ACES, there is a web page really interesting that is called ACES Central, and you can find a lot of information about it. We will share it in the resources we usually send it. In some of the cases, it's really technical, but in some others, is for normal people. So you definitely, if you have some questions about it, you can search the question in the forums, and it's a great resource. So going back to the pipeline that we were explaining, we have 3 parts: in color space, working color space, and output color space. So what we do in ACES is we convert everyone to a working color space. And then from that working color space, it goes to a display color space. And this is something that you have to always think when you are working in a color management framework. You need like the 3 parts. And the most important part is this working color space. So here is where some questions start to appear. So probably you guys are thinking, okay, if it goes to a working color space, what is the name of that working color space? Or if it converts everything to a color space that is so big, what is the name of that color space, and what are the main like features of that working color space or timeline color space? So the first thing that we need to know in ACES is that we work with two color spaces. The first one is called ACES 2065-1 or AP0. So what this means, when you go in ACES and you, like we will do later, we set to ACES, all the sources are going to go to a AP0 ACES 2065-1 color space. That, as you notice here in the presentation, is a gamut really big, also high dynamic range. It has a white point of D60 and is scene linear. And this is great because it's even bigger than what we can see and that what the cameras can see. So it means that we are not losing any information when we go into ACES. This is really important. One of the main questions that appears is, okay, if you go inside ACES, which kind of codec or format can you use to move information between ACES or to store ACES information? And based on that question, we can say that the answer is in ACES, we usually see information, we usually store and communicate information using OpenEXR files. That's the only way that we can store and communicate information in ACES because it holds ACES 2065-1 AP0. And this is the main, the bigger color space of ACES. Probably if you see ACES without any ODT, remember, you need that ODT to see it correctly, probably will look something like this. Really weird, really strange. So you always need to convert from a white color space to a small, or let's say to a display color space in order to wash it. And this is really important because unless you are going to look at something like this. But okay, we have this color space that is so wide, is great because it holds all the information, but the Academy found that it's not actually the best for working. Why? Because in many of the cases, the color is used to work in log. And also there is like, they have the three primaries, but they are not aligned as the colorists are used to. And also because it's so big, they have some problems. So they create another color space. And this color space, especially the ACES 2065-1 AP0, is not artist friendly. So based on that, they create another color space. And it looks that I have so many planes going around here. So based on that, they create another color space that is the AP1. AP1 is a more reduced gamut, we can say it, that it has also the primaries. It's not as big as the AP0, but it's more friendly to the artist. It can be log and it can be lean, depending on what you need. So based on that, if we compare the two color spaces, we have these differences. AP0 is the bigger one, AP1 is the smaller one and is the artist friendly. And these are the main features of the AP1 color space. A small set of primaries and it's more comfortable to work with it. So probably right now you're thinking, okay, we have two color spaces, and here is where we start like thinking, okay, where that color spaces are, and why do we need that color spaces? Mostrando imágenes que coinciden. Sorry. So the first thing you need to know is that we usually, or what we do is we have AP0 for archival or for communicating between ACES, and we have AP1 for working. That's the main like thing you need to know. AP1 can be CC or CCT. We will talk more about it later, but that's what you need to know. So based on that, the color or the ACES pipeline is the next one. So first, you use an IDT. What this means that all the Arri, Sony, Canon, Blackmagic, animation, everything go inside ACES with that IDT. And what this means is that this IDT converts everything to AP0 lean, ACES 2065-1. That is this big color space. It converts everything. But probably you are thinking, okay, Diego, but you say to us that when it converts everything, okay, all of the sources are in AP0, but you say to us that AP0 is not the working color space. It's more a color space that everything goes there. So what ACES do is that in order to work correctly and to, in some way that the colorist or the artist feel more friendly to work with, it converts everything AP0 to AP1 and log, especially in the case of color grading. So this is the working color space. This is like the how the tools are going to behave and where we are going to work in AP1 ACCT. Then, because we don't want to lose any information, what we do is we go back. It goes back from AP1 to AP0. From AP1 to AP0 and from log to lean. And based on that, what we do is like, because we have a really big color space, wide gamut, wide dynamic range, we need an ODT that usually have a RRT that probably you will see it in some cases that will map this big color information and this big color space to a small display or a small gamut. This gamut can be Rec 709, Rec 2020. So this is especially the color ACES pipeline. And this is the reason that we need to know that it has two color spaces. AP0 for archival or for communication purposes, AP1 for working. Can we modify all of this in Resolve? Not completely. And that is something that you have to take care about it. And finally, just to give part to start like looking at the practice part, this is something that you will find in the manual. And this is how Resolve manage like ACES in a project-based part. So as you notice, the image data go to an IDT, then you can encode that or work in an ACCC or ACCCT, that is AP1, a small set of primaries. Then you decode that and then go back to AP0, apply a RRT, ODT, and then you can monitor your image. So that's mainly the basic pipeline that you always need to know. And I will say that in order, right now, probably everyone is saying to you, hey, let's work in ACES. Because in some ways, like one of the most common names in the color industry. But I will say, before going into ACES, it is important to know what is ACCC, what is ACCCT, what is AP0 and why, what is AP1 and when do we use it, and that's what we are doing here. So I don't know if there is any question about it, Max, or are we okay?
So far, so good, Diego. Seems like everybody's enjoying it.
Good. And the reason that there are so many like airplanes going around here is because tomorrow is the Independence Day here. So they may like, I don't know, they're going to make like something tomorrow. That's the reason that there are so many airplanes going around.
Yeah, and you're living in the holiday destinations as well. It's a pretty place over there. No wonder.
Okay, that's good.
But
So
Eric
yeah,
is saying it's okay. We cannot really hear the airplane, so I think you're
okay, that's good. That's good. Probably you just notice my face that I feel that something is happening.
good. So yeah, let me go back to my part again and let me make myself a presenter and show my screen this time. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Is Resolve running there?
Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, sorry for that, everyone. I forgot to share screen. How amazing is that? So yeah, like what Diego is saying, basically when we are working in ACES, we need our input device transform to translate the color space from our footage into the working footage. And then also we will be working in the AP1 ACES color space. And then after that, we will be putting it out into the, how do you call it, the ODT, or the output device transform. As Diego already mentions, there are many ways of doing ACES, and like the one that I know is just setting it up in the project management, or you can also use the node as the ACES setup. Well, what I'm going to show you today is that I will show you how you can set up ACES in the node tree. And as you can see, if I'm opening my project settings, and if we go to color management, my color management at the moment is on DaVinci YRGB with Rec 709. It should be Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. Let me search for that. Yeah, there we go. Save it. So as you can see, I'm still in a camera color space. That's why it's looked like that. What I'm going to do is that I will be using Resolve FX color OFX, which called the ACES transform, to transform my footage into a working color space. And then later on, I will retransform that back to the output color space. So what I'm going to do is that I'm making 3 nodes. And in the first node, I'm dropping the ACES transform, and I will rename it as an IDT. And then in the third node, I will be using exactly the same OFX. And in this node, I will rename it as ODT. And in the input device transform, as you can see, you have a selection of ACES versions. And in this case, you can use either ACES 1.1 or 1.2. And in this case, it is wise to always use the newest versions, newer versions. And here, I will specify what was the footage shot with. And in this case, we know that it was shot with Canon C70 using the Canon Log 3. And there you go. And I will transform it into my working space. And my working space, I have for my working space, there are 2 choices here. If I want to work in ACES-CC or in ACES-CCT. And in this case, I will be using ACES-CCT. I'll explain it a little bit later, the difference between ACES-CCT and ACES-CC. I'll go through about that in quickly. So that's my IDT. And then now if I'm going to my ODT, I can specify my input transform from my working color space, which was ACES-CCT, and then my output transform to my display color space. In this case, is the Rec 709. And by doing that, I got a pleasant image that I can work with. And under this sandwiched, how do you call it, input and output device transform,
that's good.
I can create as many as node as I want to, how do you call it, to do my grade. And for example, if I just want to introduce some, sorry, this the HDR wheel. So if I'm going back to lift gum again, if I want to just introduce some blue on the highlight and then some orange in the shadow, I can do that in ACES CCT, how do you call it, color space. So the difference between ACES CC and ACES CCT is that what I heard is that the curves of ACES CCT has a toe. It means that you can work by, you can establish a softer shadow area by using the ACES CCT. Meanwhile, if you want to have a deep black shadow, you can better off using the ACES CC. The difference is just in the shadow area.
Yes, so I want to add something here. So as you notice, yes, Max create a node, like a node tree. So the IDT is the same as what you saw in the diagram. It's converting the Canon footage to ACES. Now when he's ACES, he create the node 2, the node 3, the node 4, and that's where he's working, ACES CCT AP1. Because we cannot see ACES CCT AP1 correctly without having an ODT. That's the reason that he made an ODT. When he converts all of that big information to a display color space in order to watch it.
Yeah, there is a questions here in the chat. Is there a reason why working color space is logarithmic? Is that due to color grading tools being logarithmic adjustments? Well, we go back a little bit and we try to understand the human visions. Human visions is logarithmic by design, and the light appears outside in the world are linear by natures. So you know, and for us to see like properly, we have how do you call it, the logarithmic curve built in our eyes. That's why we can see the deeper the detail on the shadow while also seeing in the highlight in the detail on the highlight area. And yeah, by mimicking the same logarithmic how do you call it, uh, logarithmic curve in human visions, we can like get the best of the adjustment for our grade. Yeah, do you want to add on that, Diego?
Yeah, I mean,
Why the color space is logarithmic?
And also because it's the way that we
visions.
have to work more of the time. That's one of the main reasons. But also, for example, in VFX artists in Nuke, for example, they work in linear. So that's the reason that there is another color space that is ACCG, that is AP1 linear.
Linear.
So
yes.
it's up to the artist and up to the, I mean, to the way that the artist wants to behave their tools.
Yeah. And yeah, if we move forward, and I think I remember I was saying that it is easier to guarantee consistency when we are working using color managements. What I want to show you here is that by using groupings, you can and using the ACES setup in the node, you can literally work fast by use the transformations in the timeline. So for example, here I have two clips grouped together, and instead of just using the clip node, clip level node, I'm using the pre-clips for my IDT. And as you can see here, I specify my IDT in the pre-clip, and then I will go to the timeline level to do my ODT. And by doing so, I can establish all the look that I want, to create in the timeline level. And if I have like hundreds of shots in my project, it will just apply the look instantly, and I will just need to normalize the difference between the look based on the either by scenes or by the anything you want to categorize your how do you call it, clips. And one more thing that you normally encounter when you are working with ACES is that sometimes when you are working with ACES, and if you have a clip that has a very, how do you call it, that was shot under a gel light, and you normally will encounter a problem which called the blue clipping, the blue highlights clipping. And for example, by using the setup in the node 3, ACES setup in the node 3, I can easily visualize the how do you call it, the chain of the color space transformations. So for example, if I am doing my IDT in the node tree, and as here we have the clip from ARRI Alexa, and my output transform I chose to be in ACCCT, and my ODT is in the ODT input transform is from ACCCT going to the Rec 709. And as you can see, as I'm doing the transform, all the clipping happens on the face of the subject. So what I can do when I have this problem, there are several how do you call it, solutions to the problem. Well, what I can do manually is that I can just working in the camera color space, in this case before the IDT, and I can reduce the saturations, for example, of the clip to normalize the clipping problem. But there is a built-in solutions to this, and I think Diego will explain this to you better.
Sure. So when you are working, or when you say like, okay, I want to work in ACES, you have two options. You have one option that is like, I'm going to share here. All right, wait. Okay, now you probably see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so you have two options. You have one option that is working in ACES, doing it by your way or by your knowledge in some way, and this can be DaVinci YRGB. This means that the software will not assist you in any, and probably that's the reason that Max had to create nodes, make all of that color transformation and so on. But there is another option also to work in ACES, and it work in ACES based in a project setting. And here in the color management under color science, here you can work in ACES based in a project configuration. And here is where you say, okay, I want to work in ACES based in ACES-CC on ACES-CC T. In some way, then like the more recommended option for colorists is ACES-CC because of the toe that is, it actually like doesn't like it gives like a softness in the shadow, and it's also easier like to leave the blacks. So that is actually like one configuration that you say, okay, I want to work here and I want that Resolve assist me in the color transformations. So after selecting the color science, you select the version. So as Max say, we have like different versions of ACES, and this is one of the coolest thing in ACES is that ACES is not a science static. It's evolutionate. It's like developing all the time, and this is really important. Right now we have ACES 1.2, and here you have input device transform, output device transform. That is exactly the same as what we saw. Let me show here. Here, input device and output device. The reason we don't see the working color space is because Resolve already know which color space you are going to work. So we don't see anything here. So when you are working in ACES in a project base, what you need to do is select the input device transform and the output device transform. And here's something like to take care. If you have raw files, you don't need to select anything because ACES, based on the SDK of the cameras, will know how to develop, I don't know, Sony RAW or ARRI RAW into AP1. So you don't need to select anything. But for example, if most of the cameras of your footage is Alexa or Blackmagic Design or Sony, it can be important, or it's recommended to select it here, the color space of your camera. Here, you select the output device transform, and this means your monitor and your render. So what this means? That if your monitor is Rec 709, select Rec 709. If you are grading in HDR, probably you will select Rec 2020 or P3D65 ST2084. It's up to your monitor. And also this output device transform will print this color space in your renders. And this is something really, really important. So what this means that, for example, if you want to export something in AP0, probably you will select no output device transform, because this will not print any output or any color space transform after what you already transformed here. So this means that your renders are going to be in AP0. We also have here another important tool that is process now LUT in. And here you start checking or start looking AP01, AP1. This is something important to take care about it, because it means that how the LUTs are going to be processed when you are adding them into, in this case, into the timeline space. So you can override this later, but we usually set this like normal. You can set this also here, but then you will see, or we can understand how it works. So after that, there is another option that is use color space aware grading tools. And this is something really important that the softwares are implementing lately. And what this means is that when you change the working color space, let me go back here. When you change the working color space by default of Resolve, the tools are going to behave different. So for example, you will notice that in ACES, the tools are going to behave different. In Resolve Color Management, also are going to behave different. So this option is appearing in all of the, or in many color grading software. And it means that it doesn't matter the timeline color space or the working color space you are, the tools are going to behave similar. Right now in Resolve, you can find this in the HDR panel or in the qualifier, I believe so. So probably in a future, we can say that this button will not appear, because all the tools are going to behave the same in all the timeline working color spaces we have it. But definitely right now, not all the tools behave the same, but this is definitely a check you need to do. So based on that, I will select Rec 709 here, and I will select save. And what I'm going to do actually before doing that is, first I'm going to use the same clip that Max has. Let me just actually delete it. This one over here. And the first thing you need to notice is that you need to convert your footage into ACES. How do you make that? You make that by selecting, I will go back here, an IDT. And this is something really important, because if you start working with this footage without selecting an IDT, it will be a problem for your footage. This means that will appear banding, will appear digital artifacts, and will not be correctly set up for your project. So based on that, what you can do is, here in the project settings, you can select where your footage come, or you have the option to right click in the clip and in the input transform, select the correct one for your camera. And here is something really, really important. You need to know where the footage comes from. If you don't know, it will be a mistake to select another one because you think that is the one that is the correct one. In this case, this is science. So you need to select the one that is from the camera in order to work correctly with the footage. So that's the reason I ask Mask and I say, hey, what is the name of the camera? And he say Alexa. So we select Alexa. And here, as you notice, the footage is already okay and ready to work. As I told you, with raw files, we actually don't need that. For example, this is a camera raw. And when I select it here, I have here a footage, the same footage of the bear. And if I go here to the raw, this is actually, okay, this is not raw file. This is codec. So we can do the same, right click, ACES input transform, and this is Canon 7D. And there you go. Okay, and here we have. Let me check. I thought that I have raw files here. Probably, okay, yes, I have. Yes. So what happened with raw files? I just like drag and drop it to the project, and I don't need to select anything. And if I right click here, as you notice, I don't have any options. And this is really great because one of the main problems of working under color management is to select the color space that we need to work on it. If you're working in ACES, you don't need to select anything, especially with raw, and you don't need to like start like messing your clip with what is the color space, what is the gamma. That in the case of red, you have like 100 options. So in this case, Resolve will do it automatically. So this is, as you notice, this is important, like to know if you start working with your footage and you feel that the colors are not technically correct, it means that you are not working correctly in ACES. And this is really important. You need to select the correct IDT, or if it's raw, you don't need to select anything. I don't know if you have one question of some question in this part, Max, or is it good?
So far, so good, Diego.
All right, perfect. So now let's talk about the problem that Max say about the blue highlights problem. And this is one of the
pretty
reasons
popular
that,
with ACES, right, Diego?
yes. And this is one of the reasons that many people in some way like work as mass say like, okay, I will simulate ACES in DaVinci YRGB, or I will work here. So one of the main problems in ACES is that in most of the highlights, especially with blue, it will show an artifact. Let me actually I'm zooming here. This is the artifact that is showing. Okay, so there are a couple of solutions to fix that. And the first one, let me share it to you. The first one is use an OFX, and the name of the OFX is called gamut limiter. So I will drag it here. And what I do is when I drag it, I can select, okay, limit gamut to rec 709. Now create something, okay. And now it kind of limit here. Current gamut, ACES, okay, ACES CCT. Okay, there you go. And here you can like start limited. Let me check in the vector scope. But it actually like here is where you start thinking, okay, is that the color of the lights? Probably I don't know, I don't think so. This is one way to do it or to fix with this problem. On the other one, it will be like to create or to apply a LMT that is called neon suppression. So let's talk about a little bit about LMT. LMT is a name that is called look modification transform, and it is supposed to be applied in ACES 2065-1. So one of the things that you need to know is that if we go back here to the diagram, when you are working in nodes, you are working in ACES CCT all of the time. This means that it's ACES CCT all of the time. When you are working outside nodes, is ACES 2065-1. So if we want to apply a LUT or a tool that is going to correct something that is happening ACES 2065-1, we need to apply that LMT in AP0 or ACES 2065-1. So what this means, that you need to change the color space of the node, and you can then later apply it here. Or what I like more is actually to apply it here in the clips module, in this part, because this part is different as the nodes. So here the nodes is AP1, here the clips part is AP0. So what I can do is right click here and then select the LUT and then neon suppression, and there you go. And it's actually doing a better work than the gamut limiter that I was doing, because it was like changing me the color. So that's actually like the way you can like fix this part. In most of the cases I do this There are also some DCTLs that some people provided that you can apply it to the node that can fix this problem. And I can say that this is one of the main reasons that people used to work here in DaVinci YRGB, because they can control it more manually than what you can do it here in the, here in this part in ACCC or in the project settings.
There are always advantage and disadvantage of the approach, right, Diego?
Yes, definitely. If you ask me, hey Diego, what do you prefer? Definitely, I will prefer more to work here, like in a project, because I don't like to have so many nodes. So if I have now nodes about color space transform and so on, it will be a mess for me. But I know so many good friends and so many great colorists that are working simulating ACEs in nodes.
Alrighty, yeah. I hope that has been helpful for you all, guys. As you can see, you can set up ACEs in the project settings, and you can also set up ACEs in the node tree. Which one is better? Which one is best? I think to answer that, it's really coming back to you. And like any other post-productions related, testing is a key. So always test it by yourself, which one is the more convenient approach to your workflow. And yeah, before we say goodbye, let me just redeem my error from the beginning. Let me point you out to this great, how do you call it, resources. There's this readings from Jeremy Sellen, and the title is Cinematic Color. And this is such a great reading if you want to understand more about color management, and it explains what is color management and what are the color spaces and all the good definitions from that. And to access the PDF, you can simply go to the cinematic color.org, and yeah, I will provide the link later on. And then yes, let me repeat what I didn't show you earlier. All the recording, how do you call it, the recorded sessions, including this one, will be uploaded to the YouTube channel under Maxon Training Team. And if you want to access Diego's playlist provided for Netflix about ACEs and all the thing, like color round trip workflow, you can also see that in the new Digital Backlot brand account. And I will also share the link in the video descriptions and YouTube video later on. And certifications, if you want to test your knowledge, and you can go to maxon.net/certifications, and there are 3 different certifications that you can get: the elementary one, or the 2 Cinema 4D comprehensive, basic comprehensive certifications. And also, if you want to be a Cinema 4D trainer, you can do the Cinema 4D trainer certifications. And the resources, as you can see, it's provided in the Dropbox link. And get a t-shirt, get a free t-shirt. If you access the Dropbox links, you will have the PDF, and from that PDF you can access the link to the free t-shirt using the password color2set07. So I hope that's been helpful for you all, guys, and it's been a pleasure to be here today. And be sure to tune in next week. We will have a nice chat with Stu. So thank you very much, Diego, for your time and such a great explanations. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice week.
Thank you, everyone. Ciao. Have a nice
Bye.
week.